WSBB.
And we are back. You know, we have been talking about this crazy heat that we have had, and we certainly have had some dry conditions despite some afternoon showers and storms over the last couple of days. We could do without the lightning, but we need a lot more of that rain. But when we say that, you know, it kind of you start sweating just a little bit because we don't want to have to think about hurricane season, but it is here, folks. And as we have seen in recent years, it's really better to be as prepared as you can because you know, it's better to be offensive than defensive, as they say. And joining us now live in studio, first time that we have been able to welcome this guest, Dr. Lauren Rawlins. She is a veterinarian at both Spring Oaks Animal Care in DeLand and Shadow Lake Animal Hospital in Ormond Beach. Good morning to you, Dr. Rawlins.
Good morning, Amy. Thank you so much for having me today.
Gosh, we appreciate you taking the time to come in and give us some tips and talk about this really important topic. I want to ask you a little bit about your background, though, how you got your start on this path. I imagine you've loved animals your whole life, and that's probably what got the ball rolling.
Yeah, unfortunately, a time true and told, but I grew up with a lot of animals around me. I was even in FFA raising boar meat goats when I was in high school. So I've always had a passion for animals and then just decided to continue that on with kind of a healing aspect. And I've been a veterinarian now for about 5 years.
And are you from the area?
I am. I was born and raised in Flagler County, actually. And so I decided to come back home.
So you went away for school then, obviously.
I did. So I did my education at St. George's University in Grenada, actually. So I spent 3 years in the Caribbean during school.
How nice.
It was amazing.
You are living your best life.
It was.
And then you got to return to your roots and do something that you just love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always a new and very exciting day. And I love being able to help both animals, but then also their pet parents in our community too.
And so both of these places, it's referenced as a VIP network. What does that mean?
Yeah, so you're finding it very often now in veterinary medicine where we have these little networks and groups where it's kind of conglomerations of hospitals, and some of these are started by themselves or some of them are started by the network itself. But Veterinary Innovative Partners, it is a corporation, but we're kind of tied together, but it allows us to have more resources with each other too. So we can be able to work with each other or sometimes have added benefits like health benefits with bigger groups as well.
That's a great collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now with hurricane season kind of right around the corner here, I mean, we're on it now. Here we go. Things look a little different for pet owners. You got maybe a little extra that you need to consider, and can you touch on some of those things for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, it's right around the corner. So now is the time to start making those preparations rather than being stressed and kind of scrambling around. When I do recommend each pet parent making kind of a hurricane preparedness kit for each of their animals, but in addition to considering the storm, they also need to consider that they may be stranded at home afterwards, or you may need to evacuate quickly. And so when making that preparedness kit, kind of thinking about what you need for your pet's daily life. So food, you want to make sure that you have at least 1 to 2 weeks worth. When you're collecting water for your family, make sure that you know that your animal needs that water too. So making enough that you have for them too. And then also if you need to leave, making sure that you have the harnesses, the collars, the leashes ready to go. If you're a crazy pet kitty owner like myself, you want to make sure that you have enough carriers for all of your cats and your pets to be able to leave. If you are planning to go to a shelter situation, sometimes they do need your animal to be contained. So if you have a dog and you have a dog crate available, I would recommend bringing that just in case. And then also thinking about sometimes the bathroom situation, which is something that people don't always consider. They do have like collapsible litter boxes that you can take with you, or if you're needing to stay at home and your dog's not able to go out the whole time during the storm, you could make a little potty area that could be in the garage, somewhere in your house, but using pee pads. Or I've seen some owners get creative where they'll get like AstroTurf or sod and put it kind of in a kiddie pool, so that way they're not having to go in and out. And then the final thing to think about is also the medical aspect. So if you do have an animal that's on chronic long-term medication, you should make sure that they have 2 weeks to 4 weeks of that medication in general, but your veterinarian may be closed right after the hospital or right after the hurricane, so you may not be able to go to the hospital hospital to get refills. So you want to account for that as well. You want to make sure that you have paperwork and documentation for your animal. And I recommend both physical copies and then also electronic copies on your phone, making sure that you have vaccine records, your rabies tag and certificate, any kind of pertinent medical history, and then also microchip information. So it's a good idea to make sure that your chip information is up to date with that company too.
You have brought up so many good points, some that I have impacted me, especially when it comes to the medical records, because we keep it in a file, and then the file is somewhere buried in a drawer, but you're scrambling to try to get out of the house, and maybe you're going to check into a hotel or go to a shelter or what have you. You have to have that, so you don't want to be scrambling at the last minute. So I like the idea of, you know what, take a picture with your phone, put it on there so you've got that copy. And the medication, that's such a great point. We might think about it for ourselves, but what happens if your pet is on medication as well? That should be in that kit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't want there to be an emergency situation. And some of these diseases, heart disease, seizures, different hormone diseases like diabetes, they need that medication every day. So you don't want something disastrous to happen during a storm and you're having to try to drive to the ER during that time.
We talk about typically after a storm, it's when as humans, we see the biggest injuries, right? We're out there, there's debris, we're trying to clean up. Maybe we're, I don't know, not being as smart as we should with generator use. Do you also see that in your practice? Do you see an influx after hurricanes and storms?
Yeah, so the main thing I would say that I think that we see is more stress related, actually. So pets are impacted by stress just like us. They don't unfortunately know what's going on as well as we do. And that can have a lot of consequences on the body. Sometimes we see GI issues. Sometimes that can bring up other illnesses, respiratory diseases in cats. So I would say sometimes we see that a little bit more often, or also just if there's owners that are not making sure that they're cleaning up any debris, looking at where all the water and the flooding is in their area, that water can harbor a lot of diseases. Sometimes it can be contaminated. And so that's something to consider as well too. And I do recommend that all of our pets be maintained on heartworm, flea, tick, and intestinal parasite control, because all of the rain, all of that flash flooding, that's going to bring out all those nasty, pesky critters. And so we want to make sure that our pets are protected, because those may harbor diseases that we may not see right away, but in the future. So heartworm is transmitted by mosquitoes. They love the water, and that can be a breeding ground for them, but it's going to take 6 months for you to unfortunately see those consequences. So that may be something that we see later on afterwards too, even just resulting of the hurricanes.
Such great tips and wonderful advice. It has really been a pleasure to have you on the air. I hope you'll come back and visit with us again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
If folks would like to reach out and get in touch with you, what is a good way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can contact either of our clinics. Again, I work at Spring Oaks Animal Care Center in DeLand or Shadow Lake Animal Hospital in Ormond Beach. We have websites. You can give us a call. And if you wanted to talk to me personally, I'd love to connect, and they can be able to put you in touch either with email or phone number.
Dr. Rawlins, thank you so much for coming in to see us today. I hope that you will be back again very, very soon. This was great advice. We do appreciate it. We are running behind. Got to take a quick break. We'll be back with more next. You're listening to the great voice of Volusia County on the stations of WSBB Radio.